All right, so a quick look at the tweets. Praveen Kumar just put in 3 minutes back, hashtag ETVTS. Thanks for sharing more information in Tech Summit. All right, you're very welcome, Praveen, but I hope you're still staying tuned because some final last sessions to undergo as well. Please, all of you, this is the time to make the most out of the sessions that are happening and also all those engagement features that you can sort of engage with, and also just that final moments when you can up your leaderboard scores. So keep that going, while right now we will initiate a dialogue that will accelerate results beyond RPA to hyper automation. While I was just researching about our summit and the content regarding it, according to Gartner, hyper automation is rapidly shifting from an option to a condition of survival, ladies and gentlemen. RPA, low code, the AI, and many other hyper automation technologies have proved to be the must-have ingredients, for architecting those critical business demands. Well, on that note, may I have the pleasure of inviting and very, very warmly welcoming on the screen Prashant Singh, Direct IT and CIO, Max Healthcare. We'll also be joined by Vinay, Jammu, the VP Physical Digital Technologies, GE Digital. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this session would be moderated by Sumit, Srivastav, the partner and leader, Intelligent Automation, PwC India. Well, to Sumit and of course to our other two discussants, a very, very good evening to you. And I know you folks keep very busy working professionals, but thank you very much for taking out the time and joining us. Handing it over straight to you, Sumit, on that note.
Thank you so much, Shrika. And it's an indeed pleasure to moderate this panel and have my fellow colleagues like Prashant and Vinay to share their experiences. Also before we start off, I would say all of us 2 years into the pandemic, 2 years, one day before is when we were all surprised with the way this pandemic would have impacted our lives. And I think so as an industry, we've seen us evolved over the last 2 years in the way we have been doing our businesses. If I have to summarize what happened in last 2 years during the pandemic, there were 3 stages: restart, reconfigure, and reinvent. So what was the first stage? The first stage of restart, I would say starting from March 2020 till December, by the time the vaccines were getting rolled out. This was a phase when there was a lot of uncertainty in the industry. Organizations were grappling with trying to get answers in terms of how do I restart my operations? How do I get my workforce back to my offices, to my factories in a safe and secure manner? And how do I basically create a remote working model and set up that infrastructure for my workforce to access? I think so the first 6 months of the pandemic, all the organizations, and I'm sure all the fellow members who are hearing this discussion would realize, a lot of us have spent time on restarting our business operations in respective ways. Then came the wave or the duration when, the rollout of the vaccine started. And largely that was the phase which I would call as reconfiguration. Organizations were then saying that how do I bring in resilience into my business model? How do I have a more sustainable, predictable supply chain? And how do I monitor and improve productivity at my workplace? Because slowly and steadily organizations were coming back to the normal ways of working. But while they were doing that, the pandemic was also modifying itself in terms of different containment zones coming across in different cities, and it had its own impact and expectation resetting from the organizations across different sectors. And then I would say the last 6 months, very interesting, when we saw a large section of the population getting vaccinated, double vaccinated, and still the virus also modifying the way or the different variants which started coming in. But clearly, I think so everybody understands that we would live in an environment of coexistence. The virus will mutate, but industry will operate in a model which is unique from what it was in 2020, because today we are all looking at reinventing our business. How do I create a more data driven intelligent enterprise? Because the models of how we were servicing our clients, of how we were interacting with our end customers, of how we are providing services, or creating products have all transformed in last 1.5 to 2 years, thanks to the pandemic, which accelerated the whole digital transformation within each of those sectors. So while we went through this transformation, I'm sure this my colleagues Vinay and Prashant would share a great perspective in terms of how their organizations and in their experience they have seen organizations and their enterprise, bring in the enterprise-wide transformation approach, starting from RPA to hyper automation, what we see here today. Now, with this as a context setting, let me now, what we plan, we'll cover a couple of questions, which are the most thought of questions, which, we have heard, seen coming from most of the industry leaders, trying to understand of how they would go ahead in their journey moving from RPA to hyper automation. So the first question, which I'd like to put forward to you, Prashant, here, and similarly, I'll request Vinay to answer on the same question is, how have you seen the automation maturity curve in your organization in the last 2 years? And maybe any interesting examples you would like to share with the audience here.
Yeah. So fortunately, basically, I'm working in an organization where there are a lot of demand. My business is hyperactive for hyper automation. I should put it like that. So there is one and another processes. Basically, there is always in a demand to the IT that, okay, can we automate like this? Can we automate this particular process? So we are always on the fire, you can say, basically, in terms of finding the solution for the automation. And that is the best part, basically. Once you have the problem defined, so it is very easy to find the automation solution. So likewise, basically, we start. So fortunately, we are using all sort of tools for the hyper automation, whether it is RPA, AI, or low code, no code, basically. So I would start with a few of the use cases, basically, of all the technologies which we are leveraging right now. So I will start with the RPA. So looking at the capability of the RPA, so we have finalized or shortlisted couple of use cases. So since I'm coming from the healthcare industry, so there is a big load of the insurance claim processing in our organization. So what we have identified, so because of the heavy load of claim processing of specifically three categories, basically, which we have covered in the automation part, is the claim processing for TPA, that is third party administration, and CGHS and ECHS. So the process was, somebody, manual person need to actually check for either portal of these organizations or, check all the emails for the claims, for the processing. So what we have identified, and the process was to extract the claim information from email and portal. So what we did was, so we have implemented the bot, in terms of the human who used to extract the claim information from, whichever is the, source, whether it is email or portals or whatever it is. So we have completely the bot, what it does is basically extract the information. It reconciles with the patient information. It passes the information and puts into the ERP or related softwares. So what we could achieve is basically, so we could achieve the minimal human intervention coming out of this particular automation process. We could actually reduce 90% of the overall processing time. We could actually reduce rework to literally zero, to be I can use that particular near to zero, you can say. So, and we are, on the verge of exploring more processes, since, we have seen the success of this particular automation process. We are exploring a couple of more processes, which can be automated by using RPA, like, admission and discharge processes, post-discharge processing of insurance bills and things like that. One more interesting use cases actually, which we used, was, so in the pandemic, so we were supposed to, do thousands of, because the large organization used to do thousands of RT-PCR tests, where we were supposed to, feed all the related information on the ICMR website. And it was a, statutory legal mandatory requirement for us. So, and it was a complete mandate and manual exercises. So what we did is, again, we implemented RPA bot, who used to take the information from the related, whether it is Excel or the softwares, the HIS, hospital information system and other related software. It pulled the information, log into the ICMR website, find out the patient relevant, it matches with the relevant information from the system, and just post it. So, and where 10-15 people were doing just this kind of manual mundane task, now it has been replaced completely by RPA. So that is the kind of automation we could achieve with this. And couple of use cases, like we are a heavy user of low code, no code, and to the surprise, basically there is no technical person who is involved in making the automation softwares. So there is a non-technical team who identify the processes, use the low code no code, and delivers within no time, you can say. So as compared to the conventional methodology, it just gets uploaded, maybe I think within complex processes, maybe 10 to 11 days, that's it maximum which we have seen. So these are a couple of use cases which we could actually implement and see the real benefit coming out of this.
Thanks, Prashant. And really, I think so. Some of these use cases, I'm sure, would have also brought in a lot of, I would say, reduced workload on an over-exhausting, supply side from the healthcare perspective. It's so much of demand coming in. I recollect having, interactions with some of the healthcare experts. And what I loved, the pandemic has brought in that, they are embracing technology much more than anybody else, be it telemedicine to how you are bringing in automation within the entire patient care. And also in terms of, ensuring that all those bottlenecks, right from, your whole insurance process to claims process to discharge summary, areas where,
even the AI
traditional.
was used heavily, basically, in the field
Yes.
of radiology in the pandemic. That
Hmm.
was, the time actually when we used AI also.
Sure. So all of that, I'm sure, has impacted a lot more in positive sense for saving lives of people, bringing in greater attention to the human life saving than many of these activities. I see can't be a more relevant examples of how technology has come to the rescue of human beings. It's not just about bringing in productivity, but saving lives. So I would congratulate you for all the efforts which you are doing, and I hope we'll hear a lot more interesting stories in the times to come of how you at Max Healthcare are taking this journey forward. So let me now come to Vinay. Vinay, you've been involved in multiple industries, companies within GE for providing the digital transformation. So I would be very keen for you to share the examples with our audience of how the I would say hyper automation journey has helped across different sectors.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sumit, and great examples, Prashant. They're very relevant for us. So in my experience, basically, there are three factors, at least I have seen, that drive your maturity level, how mature you are. First is, are you born before cloud or after the advent of cloud? So if you're born before cloud, which most manufacturing companies are, then you have a bigger journey. You have more work to do to get into automation and hyper automation. The second is, how long have you been at this journey? Right? Some of the activities of delivering higher business value take longer time. So it requires more effort and more integration. And the third is availability of data. So in a manufacturing industry like ours, for example, we have design data, manufacturing data, material data, supply chain data, maintenance data, warranty data, customer data, orders data, financial data, tons and tons of information. If this information is available, then you can start looking at using that and building higher value hyper automation solutions. If you don't have that information available, there's not much you can really do in terms of delivering higher value. These are the three factors I have seen that drive the maturity of an organization and where they are on the journey. Let me take an example. Prashant gave a very great examples on healthcare. Let me take power business. GE equipment, we have very large install base. Today, one third of world's electricity gets generated by GE equipment around the world. It's an amazing number. All the time I keep thinking about. So the specific use case here was, we have global field service engineers which service this equipment. We have global customer base spread around the world. And this customer base, this is a few years ago, require technical support, right? Whenever there is an issue, there is an alarm, there is a specific request for information, hey, I need to do this. There's a call center equivalent stuff. So they would call us, and then you would have a whole bunch of people supporting this call center. The goal was, can you automate this? What is the value chain you can go in going from automating this to going into hyper automation? That was the problem. And there is significant variation when people are involved. Everybody requires training, availability, and so on. So that was a problem statement. Can you automate it, and how much of it can you automate to deliver business value? So when we started off, the first thing said all the knowledge in the organization resided in paper copies, right? We were shown a room, box full of paper. I said, look, all the maintenance records, historical stuff is all in this paperwork. This is where you got to start. This is where the information is. So I said, okay, no problem. If the organization information is in paper, so first we took all those papers, we digitized them, applied OCR, and on top of that, we started doing text mining and then started correlating questions to answers and started calculating probabilities. Right? This is a higher probability answer, low probability answer. Use the domain knowledge of the experts available to start validating them. So that was the first step we did. Once we started doing this, we realized to improve the accuracy of these algorithms, we needed integration with turbine configuration data, right? Different turbines have different configurations, have different answers. So we integrated with configuration data. Then we had to integrate with customer data because customers themselves are operating this differently. So we needed that. Then we had to integrate with the current status of the turbine, if there's alarms or not. Then to do better diagnosis, we had to integrate with the sensor data that is coming in, so that you can say, hey, this is the temperature, these are the pressures, hence this is the recommended direction. So we started doing multi-language support as we started going across. So started integrating multiple data sources to climb up the value chain in terms of delivering higher business value through higher accuracy. Then the final phase was, as we started doing this, we started getting live information from around the world, right? People are like Google search. People have started entering keyword search and searching for information, putting in queries. We suddenly realized we can use this information to identify predictively the emerging problems in the business. Emerging problems is you basically take each region, each fleet, each customer, subsegment them and say, typically you receive this many number of queries of this type. But whenever you start seeing queries of a higher type, for example, somebody is asking more about combustion, suddenly you see an emerging issue, right? There are more people asking in this region for this configuration. So that information, we started building predictive analytics, started linking that with our reliability team that can start looking at this predictively, identify emerging problems and fix these problems. Finally, we started moving into the autonomous. When we connect all these outcomes that are coming into the control system, where you can actually change the control system, take different action item as you see these problems emerging, you move into the autonomous area of this, where you're closing the whole loop. This we do actually on the wind turbine business of this, where we actually have capability to remotely manage and control our wind turbines. So basically, when you look at this journey, as we went from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, as more data became available, higher end technologies, multimodality AI, right? Imaging, text, sensor data, digital twin technology, right? We started building personalized models of customers, personalized models of the turbines. And then digital thread is what connects across all these data sources. Those became important for us to climb up the maturity curve.
Very, very interesting scenarios, Vinay. And what I would also closely relate in last 5-6 years, when the automation journey started off, clearly, I think so the maturity of the technology solutions over last few years have also amplified this. Today, you talked about digitization on extracting the information from those paper documents. I still remember back in 2015, 16, the quality of OCR document digitization was much lower. And today there are solutions which I also see where, to a greater extent, even handwritten text can be extracted. So there I see that has really enabled, coupled with AI components, of how you are able to create a data enrichment once you have got the data, and not just the data from your creating a, I would say, a search engine of all your data, getting all the machine data also therein, and on top of that you bringing in a conversational layer. Today a lot of organizations bringing in multilingual voice bots in a human like conversation. You can interact with the underlying data and bring all that analytics and insights, is really the way the future has gone in. I think so a lot of science fiction movies, what we would have seen in a couple of decades before, I really see this coming as a reality, where we all have virtual assistants helping us with some of those insights. And I would say many of these operations getting with predictive analytics, bringing in auto correction, in what we're doing here. So really interesting examples. I hope in next few years we may not be surprised that we will have couple of panelists as well who would be virtual digital workforce sharing their experiences. But great to hear that. Now moving on to the next question, which I'll again start off with you, Prashant. You talked about how the evolution of your RPA to hyper automation journey went through at Max Healthcare. But if you have to share, what were the potential challenges you faced while you were scaling up the program? Uh,
See, Sumit, actually, in any of the hyper, automation or automation processes, the biggest challenges actually I categorize into two. One is the correct identification of the use case, basically, because not that one, technology, can automate everything. Basically, first of all, you need to, visualize the entire end-to-end use case, and then identify which part would need which automation tool. So that is a very critical selection of the use case vis-a-vis the technology which you want to actually use for the automation. So that is the biggest challenge, and the right fitment is absolutely required for that. So that was one thing actually which I would like to mention, after consolidating my entire experience into that. Number one. Number two is basically there has to be a demand from the business side. Sometimes what happens is, you have automated the entire process, but there is no taker. So that is another thing. It has to be aligned from end to end, whether it is technical or the business side. It needs a complete alignment of the use case in terms of the automation and the objective which the entire process would going to deliver. So that is
Sure,
what
sure.
I
So very,
envisage.
very rightly pointed, Prashant, if you automate garbage, you get automated garbage. And clearly the right process is very, very critical. Probably since we are running short of time, Vinay, this question to you as well before we try to wind up.
Yeah, so I think I'd say 4 areas. One is outcome. These things, it's not a good to do, it's a must to do. Then you are able to actually make the digital transformation. Outcome focus, value focus. Second is culture. Do not underestimate the culture of needing for change requires a lot of work. Third area I talked about is data, availability of data, garbage in, garbage out. And fourth is skill sets. Do you have the people who are skilled enough to drive the change? So these four are things that can be pitfalls and
Perfect.
hurdles.
And Vinay, in a way, you also summarize this. All I would say is that, today these technologies are the new skills for every organization, for them to, transform the way they are operating or doing their business. Clearly, this is not something which people have an option to select. This is a necessity today for us to be relevant and be for our existence as well. But clearly, this is a very interesting journey, and the best part here is that this is journey which runs across sectors. There is a lot of learning from what healthcare industry can provide to manufacturing industry, and financial services providing it to pharma and healthcare and other sectors itself. With that, I would like to, conclude this session out here. Thank you so much for your time, both Vinay and Prashant. Over to you, Shikhar.
For a second, Sumit, you took me back to 2020, the same month, the month of March, when birth of this word unprecedented, right? So restart, reconfigure, and reinvent. That's been the need of the hour since then, as you said, Sumit. Prashant, Vinay, Sumit, all the three of you, I realize how IoT is really and closely playing a key role in enhancing the segment with faster and cost-effective services. And yes, during the lockdown, the digital platforms have really proven to be the path breakers. Thank you once again for sharing some of those very precise, clear, and excellent takeaways around how to accelerate results beyond RPA to hyper automation. Wishing you the best of the evening ahead. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, I hope we are in sync, right? We're just warming up for the penultimate session. That's going to be on Metaverse. I've been waiting for this one specifically. So the last few minutes left, and I will not fail in my duties by not reminding you that do everything you can to be the top scorers on the leaderboard. We'll just be right back. Stay tuned.